Hello there everybody, welcome back to Memory Gamma. Today is going to be we're taking a new route. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the most meta-defining cards. So, those that play the game will know that there have been a handful of cards, sort of like 10 to 12 cards, which have completely redefined the game as it stood at that time. Some of them have been modified as the game has gone on and new things have come out. There have been both Troy and Wharf rulings, that is official ones from WizKids, Wharf, and then ones that the Fremont Reformation have made in response to later cards. And so there are some cards which have changed, but there is a handful of cards which have defined an era and made everybody think, okay, this is the new thing. Some people may remember fondly, or not so fondly, Warp Jump, or Hidden Explosives, Cloaked Mines. There are some more modern cards which are having that sort of similar effect. So, we are going to talk about one today, and we're going to have a little look about how it works, and what to do if you think you're going to encounter it. So, as you can see, what's on the screen, we have the NX-01 Enterprise with the enhanced hull plating. Now, the enhanced hull plating is a construction upgrade. Now, it was originally a tech upgrade. So, the original tech upgrade is over here. Now, it used to be, during the roll defense dice step of the combat phase, if you're not cloaked and have no shields, you may add up to 2 evade results to your defense roll. If you do, put an Orcs power token beside your ship for each one that you added. It was only for a Federation ship, and you couldn't have more than one of them. Now, that was any Federation ship, so you could put this onto onto a small ship to give it some survivability. You could put it onto a huge ship to keep it going a little bit when its shields were gone. The original series Enterprise was a nice place for this, because you could take the evades with the Orcs power tokens and it didn't stop you from doing your action bar. However, the downsides of this were it was once per turn. It is a you may add, and a may ruling was that if it's a may card, you can do it once per round. It was also during the roll defense dice step, so you had to do it, so they'd rolled their attack dice and modified them, then before you rolled any dice, you chose to add these. If you added 1 or 2, that was the entire use of it for the round. So you had to sort of go, I don't think I'm going to roll very well, or I'm going to need both of these because they've got more damage than I've got evade dice. And then you put them down. Now, there was nothing wrong with that. It was potent. It meant the NX would survive. If it was only being shot at once per turn, it would probably survive. It was going to struggle against multiple attacks. However, the modern version has changed it. So it's no longer a tech, it's a construction upgrade, which means it doesn't take up any slots. It's 3 points, not 4 points. It is locked to the NX era, and the NX class itself, pardon me. Much more thematic, and obviously much more where it should be. However, now it's a when defending, which means it's every single time you defend. And it's a modified defense dice step. So you've rolled your attack, you've rolled your defense dice, and then you can go, all right, I've rolled 1 evade and 2 battle stations. They've only got 3 damage. I don't need to take these, I don't have to. You may add up to 2 evade results. If you do, place an Orcs power token beside your ship for each one added. Still the no shield and no cloak requirement. So, it's got cheaper. However, it's now locked to 1 class of ship. It's also now an every time you defend. So, this ship gets very, very good at absorbing lots and lots of damage because people can fire. And unless you put down massive attacks, this thing's going to be really hard to hurt. Now, some people don't like the enhanced hull plating. Some people don't like the NX class. It's too hard. It's too, it's far too powerful for its size. And it is possible to make the NX, with very little work, turn it into 4 attacks a turn with 4 or even 5 dice, and almost perfect quality. And then the enhanced hull plating just adds more. So there is lots of stuff that you can do. This just makes the NX class a lot more durable. Now, some people don't like it, some people like it, some people have never played it and are ambivalent. They're like, why do I care? I don't like the NX class, I'm not going to play the enhanced hull plating. And that's entirely fine. All of those are valid ways to feel. They are valid opinions. The brilliant thing about this game is that there is no right or wrong answer. Everyone has their own particular favourite choices, everyone has their own favourite cards, ship classes, and you're not wrong for choosing that. There are some cards that, whether you are a fan of them or not, that you are going to have to at least consider because lots of other people will use them. Enhanced hull plating, refractive shielding, cloaked mines, Admiral Gowron, Gul Madred, Darla, those sort of ones. All of those will get a video in due time, and I will go through some of the meta-defining cards and explain how they work, how they're so powerful, what they did, and how to counter them. So, in this one, we're going to talk about how to counter the enhanced hull plating. So, you're facing down the NX Enterprise. Let's very quickly, it doesn't really matter, but just because it looks a bit better, we're going to go, and I'm just going to put on a relatively standard NX class here. There. And then we just go... Okay. 29 points. So, it could be a 30-point ship. Here is a 29-point ship. Archer does his action. You've got Malcolm Reed and T'Pol as the two actions. They both get disabled. Phlox disables himself, re-enables them both. Porthos can re-enable Phlox. Gives you +2 captain skill, a scan token, 2 points of conversion, and 2 attacks a turn. The Federation prototype gives you a defensive reroll, and the enhanced hull plating gives you 2 free evades every time you defend. There. That is a very potent little ship. Now, how do you counter this? Now, we don't want to counter the crew upgrades because you can gank crew to all heaven. What you want to do is countering this. Now, as a friend of mine, Scott, has said in his own videos, there is no way to mess with the card. This is completely correct. It is a construction upgrade and therefore it cannot be affected by anything that would affect an upgrade card because it is not itself an upgrade card. So all of those, discard an upgrade on the target ship doesn't work. Now, there is some ways. Now, there is this data. This data here is action discard, and on a crit, discard a card of your choice on the target ship. Now that is just a card. That can be, as far as I'm aware, a construction upgrade. Because it is a card on your ship. It does not say a card equipped to your ship. It does not say an upgrade card. It just says discard a card of your choice on the target ship. You can target captains, you can target admirals. Data could also target an ambassador or a construction upgrade. Again, it might be that the construction upgrades, and again, I will admit I haven't checked the rules for construction upgrades in terms of all the bits and pieces for a while, but the data card as it's written, discard a card of your choice on the target ship. Targets anything you like. So, okay, it requires you rolling a crit. So the chance of you getting that is quite slim. But it is a potential. But very much not a hard counter. However, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up just any ship we like. Any small ship. Let's go for the Kumari. Just because it's a ship that's thematic to the era. How would you deal with the enhanced hull plating? So, first things first, what you can do is you can either work on making that their only defense, so tons of scan shenanigans to remove all their defense dice, which means all they're getting is 2 evades, at which point they're still going to be taking damage provided you have got 3 or 4 damage. So you can work on loads and loads of scan tokens, but that doesn't deal with enhanced hull plating. That deals with basically ignoring that and dealing with everything else. So what we're going to do is, there is one card which I'm quite a fan of, which is a hard counter to the enhanced hull plating. Not to this particular, it's not like it names the enhanced hull plating or construction upgrades, but this card turns off their ability to use the enhanced hull plating for that round. So I'm going to put it on the Kumari, and then we're going to talk about it, and I'm then going to go through a few other things that you could do. But there we go. Final stage targeting. Now, this is a 3-point Dominion tech. It came out with the card pack for the Dreadnought missile. And when it came out, almost everybody went, "That's terrible." I don't know why everyone went, "That's terrible." And almost no one uses it. I don't think I've seen anyone use it apart from myself. I think everyone gets hooked up on you can only target ships that you have a target lock token on. So you have to target lock the opposing ship. Which means, now, in quite a few games, this is a bit of a downside because cloak is quite a big thing, especially Romulan cloak. And of course, once they're cloaked, you can't target lock them, which of course means you can't shoot, because you're not allowed to shoot unless you've got a target lock on the enemy. It does also mean that if you target lock and then they move out of your arc, you can't fire still. So there are ways that that the opponents can of course obfuscate your use of final stage targeting. You want ways around that? You could have, on a Federation ship, you could have Daniels. He allows you to have 2 target locks at a time. Or you could have multi-targeting phaser banks, allowing you to have 2 target locks. Or targeting array, allowing you to have 2 target locks. They're a way that you can go action target lock, pick 2 ships, and then they're most likely to have one of them in arc. But final stage targeting, this ship can only target ships that it has a target lock token on. When attacking, defending ships must skip the modify defense dice step. Enhance hull plating, modify defense dice step. Any ship that target locks the NX Enterprise with final stage targeting turns off their ability to use the enhanced hull plating. Simple as that. It turns off the entire step, which means they can't activate it. They roll their defense dice, and that's all they get. They can't modify them, they can't use the enhanced hull plating, they can't add evade results with other abilities. They can still spend evade tokens because they are in the compare results step. They can still roll more dice, that's the roll defense dice step. But the modifying defense dice step, when they would convert blanks or battle stations to evades, add evade dice and evade results from enhanced hull plating, is skipped. So that is an answer. It is an absolute hard counter for the enhanced hull plating. It stops the NX from being able to use it entirely. Now, the way that works is that you must have a target to fire at them. If your weapon requires a target lock to fire, for example, the photonic cannon, just because it's the first card here which this ship could equip that needs a target lock. Now, you can only target ships you have a target lock token on, and you have to spend the target lock to be able to fire the weapon. Because you initiated an attack and you met the criteria for the final stage targeting, even if you have to spend the target lock to fire it using a torpedo or a weapon, you still get that bonus. Because whenever you would trigger final stage targeting, you get that when attacking bonus. Provided you could make your attack, you get the bonus. So you fire, it doesn't have to be for sonic cannon. At that point there, you can fire off, say it's the Kumari, you can have, here we go, advanced weaponry. 5 dice, spend your target lock, 3 time tokens. You roll your 5 dice, you could, you might have a token from somewhere else, but say, you do 3 damage or whatever. The enemy, they roll their 3 defense dice. They don't get to add enhanced hull plating, they can't re-roll from Federation Prototype, they can't get bonus conversions from anywhere else. What they roll is what they roll. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot more I can say about that. It's a very simple card, which I think a lot of people just don't use and ignore because it's 3 points, it's Dominion, it's not very good, you have to have target lock on them, it doesn't work on cloak chips, yada yada. That's what we're here for. We're looking for a counter for the NX and the enhanced hull plating. FST is a hard counter. If you bring final stage targeting and the opponent has brought an NX with an enhanced hull plating, when you target lock the NX, that ship is going to die because you managed to remove most of their defense bonuses. Now, they still have 3 defense dice as native, so they can still roll really well. But they're relying on sheer dice rolls. It might also, then they might have to more often choose evade as an action to get a guaranteed evade in the compare results step rather than doing their whole combo. So, final stage targeting is my recommendation for a hard counter for the enhanced hull plating. If you think the opponent is bringing enhanced hull plating, or if you're doing a mission where the NX is required, or if the person you're playing just likes the NX, the final stage targeting is an idea. Now, if you're not sure if they're going to bring them, you can always bring Quark. Now, Quark is almost worth an entire video all to himself due to just what he can do. However, what he does is very basic. He hides a weapon or a tech that costs 5 or less underneath him, and then you can reveal it later on. He's a 2-point crew that hides a 5-point weapon or tech. So, there you go. You've now spent 2 points or 3 points on a non-independent ship on Quark as a crew upgrade. And if they bring in an X, you've got a trump card that you can use against them. So, there are a few other things which you can use to remove or lessen the effectiveness of enhanced hull plating. You're looking for fundamentally at that point their bonus damage. Now, that has been gone into by other people. As I said, my friend Scott, his channel is a link in on my channel's page. Basically, another way to beat the enhanced hull plating is just overpower it. So it gets 2 evades, they get 3 dice. With a 3 dice and a reroll and 2 evades, you're looking at 4 cancellations per time every time you fire at them. Out of their, they're looking at 3 or 4 cancellations every time you fire at them. So if you want to do damage, rock up with 5 or 6 damage. So Klingons are very good, Romulans are very good. Both of them get lots of bonus damage tacked on at the end, or anyone that adds bonus hits or crits. So Kang, Ahab Picard, Tactical Officer, Animated Core, anyone like that. Anyone that gives you bonus dice, guaranteed hits, is a good way of dealing with enhanced hull plating. Now, at that point there, that's a ship you want to bring anyway. So, for example, the Vaughn with Core, sorry, thinking of the wrong thing. There you go. That ship there is a really nice ship to destroy the NX Enterprise. because it just gets tons of dice with really good ability. You want to make it better, you go Worf, and Gowron. There you go. You go action, battle stations, target lock. You don't need battle stations, target lock, but you go action, battle stations, evade, just in case. Or, you know, you could put Mara on here and have scan as well, actually. There you are. You go action, battle station, scan with Gowron. You've got 360 fire. You have to be at range 1 or 2 to fire the dorsal. So you're going to be getting at least 4 dice thanks to the Vaughn. Core triggers every round. That's 5 dice. Battle stations token is full conversion with Worf. And you add an extra hit. So you've got 5 dice and you're getting 6 damage. Perfect conversion guaranteed. They get only 2 defense dice thanks to Mara's scan token. 2 dice with a reroll is 1 evade. Plus those 2 is 3 evades. 6 damage, 3 evades is a dead NX. There you go. So, it's not a hard counter for the enhanced hull plating, but it's a ridiculously powerful ship that will kill almost anything. So, this is me saying the NX is powerful, but it is still very much limited by everything that would normally kill a defensive ship. Just overpowering it, cancelling defense dice, anything like that kills the NX, and you don't have to worry about the enhanced hull plating. If you are really worried about the enhanced hull plating, then you can bring, as I've said, final stage targeting. If you want to put it on the Vaughn, don't bring Mara, bring final stage targeting and do battle stations target lock. Then not only do you get your perfect conversion, they don't get to use enhanced hull plating. That's just a terrifying combination. Now, so there are a few ways that you can do more to the opponents. Again, some things you could do. These are not counters for the enhanced hull plating. These are ways to make them less defensive in other ways so that the enhanced hull plating is not enough to keep them alive. So, the Insectoid Counselor is a nice option. It's an action, but it converts one of their, during the modified defense dice step, it converts one of their evades to a blank. So it just turns off one of their evades. Now they can still up convert if they've got ability to up convert, but it's every time you attack, you turn one of their evades to a blank. Not a bad idea. Not brilliant, but not bad. Again, there's lots of things that make people re-roll defense dice. Borat makes enemies re-roll defense dice. So he makes them re-roll defense dice. There's some tech upgrades which can make the enemy re-roll defense dice. Geordie, or Hoshi, you can make them roll less attack dice. Sorry, there. Geordie, if you've got a scan token, you can make the enemy ship re-roll one defense dice of your choice. So there are ways that you can minimize his defense roll. There are ways that you can down convert his dice. There are ways that you can make him roll no defense dice. Bring Chulak, 3 scan tokens. There we are. The NX Enterprise now gets 0 defense dice, unless it itself brings its own bonuses. Or you could just bring a very powerful ship that destroys it even with its super defenses. And then you have final stage targeting as the, nope, you don't get to use enhanced hull plating at all. Just turn it off, just stop it. Now, this is not me. As I've said in every single video, this opinion is not the only opinion. Some people will go, I don't want to use final stage targeting. I don't want to be locked to have to do target locks, which is fine. There are ways you can get free target locks these days. Spock gives them. Gowron can get them. You can use a Dahar Master to get you a free target lock action. Metaphasic Sweep allows you a free target lock. And Metaphasic Sweep allows you to target lock a cloak ship. So you could bring along final stage targeting and Metaphasic Sweep. When the enemy turns up with a scimitar rather than the NX, metaphasic, target lock the scimitar, and then you can still fire at it. And then they don't get to modify their defense dice. Again, it's just a brilliant ability. So, you know, there are downsides to it. If you get outmaneuvered, especially if someone has combat phase movement or ability to move after they fired, Marquis Tuvok, Waylay, or what else would be? Life of Piracy, start the combat phase, get a free sensor echo if you're the albino. Anything that allows you to move after everyone's already done their actions is going to be very powerful against the final stage targeting. A way around that is to do final stage targeting on a ship which has got ability for 360. So on a ship with, say, the dorsal phaser array, meaning no matter where they go unless they go out of range. On a Borg ship, works quite nicely. On something that you've got options for, again, firing in the rear firing arc, or weapons that you can set. Anything which gives you more firing arcs is a good thing to bring along with final stage. It just means it's harder for the enemy to evade you. However, as I say, this is not the only answer. There are many ways, and I'm sure someone will come up with a way that is better for dealing with the NX than what I've come up with here. But this was a video talking about the enhanced hull plating and what is the thing to bring if you want to ignore the enhanced hull plating and completely stop them from using it. The answer is final stage targeting. It is the card that just stops them from using it, period. There is multiple ways to deal with the ship as a whole. Again, and also, it's not that hard. It is not that dangerous in terms of evasion. 3 defense dice with 2 automatic evades. On average, out of 3 dice, you're going to roll 1 evade. So this thing's cancelling on average 3 damage every turn. Every time it defends. With Fed Prototype, it's probably 4. However, in this modern day of the game, attacks that put out 5, 6, 7 dice, or even 5, 6, 7 damage are relatively common. So the NX generally, in the main modern game, does not massively outperform everybody unless people have gone to an awful length to either make sure it is super maneuverable to avoid firing arcs, or it's firing first before the enemy gets a chance to fire back. Another way of doing it is I did see it is possible to make the Enterprise fire a bunch of times in the activation phase. You use free attacks from, say, Admiral Enar Brintain or Mirror Regent Worf that can trigger the NX to fire in the activation phase before people have got action defenses up, before people have done their target locks, and before it gets to the combat phase, to leapfrog the combat initiative. But at that point there, unless you can do that as well, doesn't matter. So, that is my sort of little welcome to, thank you for listening to my TED talk, as it were, on the enhanced hull plating. It's potent, by, amazingly. It can be the thing that saves the ship, but it's not invulnerable. It doesn't make the shipping unkillable. And if you're really, really worried about it, bring final stage targeting. So, thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any requests for any more cards that you think this card is overpowered or this card is rubbish, I'm more than happy to basically go through and do an individual video on any individual card and talk about just that card, how it works, how to get the best out of it, how to counter it if it's just kicking you repeatedly. If there's a particular card that player at your game group always brings and you just can't deal with it, drop it in the thing, I'll do you a video and we'll see if we can help. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening and we will see you next time.